I'll just let you do that.
No worries, thank you.
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome,
Great.
brilliant.
Okay, so I'll see you in about 5 minutes.
Nice one, brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. Good evening, parents and carers, and welcome to the third of our three higher education information talks for parents. So we've already had a talk about how to support your student to apply to university and choose a course and a university. We've then had a second talk about student finance. Actually, I think the student finance one was first. Both of those are available on the college website if you missed them. Today, we're really pleased to be joined by Jamie from the University of Liverpool, and he's going to be talking to us about personal statements. So it may seem a little bit early to be thinking about personal statements, but actually it's not, because students will receive the majority of their input on personal statements, or the beginning of their input on personal statements, on the 20th of June during our After Isha Day, which is a drop-down day that we're running on the 20th of June. More information will follow about that. And over the summer holidays, we strongly recommend that students are writing and planning and beginning to consider their personal statement. So it's not too early to be thinking about it. Obviously, you as parents and carers will not be writing the personal statement. However, you may wish to support them, which is why we're running this talk today. So I'm going to pass over to Jamie in just a moment. The chat is open. If you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat, and we'll either address them at the time, or if Jamie prefers, and if it's easier for keeping the flow of the talk, we can address them at the end. And I think, will it be about 20-30 minutes, Jamie, and then 15 minutes for questions, or is that about right?
Yeah, sure, about 30 minutes or so.
Lovely. Okay. So yes, without any further ado, I'll pass over to Jamie. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming along this evening.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks, everybody. Hello, Isha. Thank you ever so much for hosting me tonight virtually to deliver this session on writing personal statements. So a little bit of a recap on applying to university, but then mainly focusing on how to support students writing their personal statements. So it's lovely to see you all. If I saw some of you at the HE Fair, it's lovely to see you again. So yeah, my name is Jamie. I work here at the University of Liverpool within the student recruitment, admissions and widened participation team. So it's my role at the university to meet with students and parents, supporters at schools and colleges to give some more advice about going on to university. So tonight, I'm going to give a quick talk on writing personal statements, how to support writing personal statements. Happy to answer any questions as well along the way. I've lost the chat because I'm on presenter mode, but I'll keep nipping back in, but we'll answer them either on the way through or at the end as well. So when I went to university, I did history at my undergrad level and postgrad level. So I did an undergrad and a master's in history. I joined the archery team. I was part of the History Society. So I got really involved in different aspects of university life. And we never had this kind of level of support in terms of writing personal statements and different ways to get into university. So it's really, really good that Isha have put on this series of talks for both students and parents and supporters. So there's a few things in my personal statement I wish I hadn't put, which are a bit cringe now. Like one of the examples I gave in my personal statement was, I'd be really good at university, because I sing in cathedrals, so I can project my voice across the lecture theatre. Don't do that, okay? Don't put something like that, okay? So they're not the kind of skills that universities are looking for. So hopefully this will give some good advice about university personal statements. Okay, so let's get going. So tonight we're going to be discussing these things right here. So a very quick recap about the UCAS application timeline. As I heard, you've already had a talk on the application system and student finance. So I'm going to cover that very briefly about the application timeline, how to apply to university, but mainly some top tips on writing an effective personal statement. So covering the basics, content and structure, some top tips about what to do in terms of what students can do and what you can do to support them as well going through their personal statement writing process. So this is a really key question to start the whole journey on, is students really need to consider, why do they want to go to university? Why do they want to go down that route into university study? There'll be loads of different reasons. There'll be, for example, you might be really interested in a certain subject. You might be really interested in some skills development. You might have an idea about what kind of career you want to go into later as well. So students will have loads of different reasons to go to university, but it's really, really key that students consider this thing first of all, because this is really the question that the application process and the personal statement in answering. Why do you want to go to university? Why do you want to do that specific course or collection of courses or subject area? So when you are with your students, your young person, when they're considering going to university, this is a really good starting point to start off. Why do you want to go to university? What are the considerations about going? And from then on, once students have that motivation about going to university, that's when it can be really, really clear about what they need to do next. So you might already be kind of aware of this and familiar with this, but this is essentially the whole UCAS application timeline. So currently, we're in the kind of research stage about finding out about university options, university degrees that you can do. So for UCAS, for students coming in 2025, obviously all the courses went live on the 30th of April, and usually follows the same structure each year. UCAS will actually open to start filling in from the 14th of May or so. There are some deadlines, obviously, so students considering medicine, veterinary, dentistry, or Oxbridge, or Oxford and Cambridge, have an earlier set deadline, which is the 15th of October, which is the formal UCAS deadline. As I've just seen Anna put in the chat, the internal deadlines are earlier than that, so absolutely stick to Isha's internal deadline with your applications. But those are kind of just like the hard deadlines from UCAS. The other hard deadline from UCAS for most of the courses is the 29th of January. But as Anna said in the chat, please do stick to those internal application deadlines. So the deadlines that Isha set, please stick to those. So after those applications have been submitted, students might be invited for things like interviews, auditions. They might be asked for extra portfolios, maybe. There might be some extra aspect to their application that they might need to submit. So it's worth bearing in mind, even before the application is sent off, asking those universities that those students are interested in, are there any extras with the application? Will I need to send anything extra with my UCAS application, or can I expect to have an interview for my particular course, or just overall for this university too? Universities will also hold, they'll call them different things like post-applicant days, applicant discovery days, post-offer days, essentially smaller, more personalized open days that universities will hold for those students they make offers to. So if a university said, yes, you sound like a great student, we'd like to make you an offer to study here, they'll be invited back usually for another experience with the university where they'll meet their staff a bit more one-to-one, a bit more on a smaller scale, a bit more of a detailed tour and a recap about why those courses and those universities might be good for them. Okay, students will have until about the start of June to decide where they'd like to go, so the firm and their insurance choice, and about August time, that's when most results are usually published by then. So by that point, that's when confirmation and clearing opens at university. So obviously confirmation is where those students who've been made those offers are confirmed on their places, even their firm or insurance places. And also there's the clearing system where students can actually shop around for different vacancies at different universities they might not have considered as of yet. Okay, and then most students will start in around October. But you'll be aware about all this. I see Anna's just put in the chat there some really useful deadlines. So really, really do stick to Isha's internal deadlines. But I just thought to give you a nice quick recap about the whole kind of application process. Okay, all this information can be found really easily on the UCAS website. There's kind of, if you just Google UCAS key dates, this will all come up. So feel free to have a look through that if you can. So as you'll know, we're quite lucky in the UK to have kind of a centralized application system called UCAS, or the Universities and Colleges Admission Service. So all students will actually not apply to universities directly. They'll apply to UCAS, who then tell us at universities, we have students who apply for your particular courses. The students out there who are really interested in your courses. So when your student sends off that application to UCAS, they then inform those 5 choices or up to 5 choices that they've put down in their application that those students are interested in applying. So it's actually all handled through UCAS, a bit like a middleman between the students who are applying and the universities that are offering those spaces. As you may be aware as well, students have a maximum of 5 courses, or 4 if they're applying to medicine, dentistry, veterinary, or Oxford or Cambridge. They have 4 choices, Oxford or Cambridge, and then a 5th choice. So for example, if a student's interested in medicine, they'll get 4 choices of medicine courses, and then the spare one can be whatever they want, but most students will pick something that complements it, such as, biomedical science, for example. There will be an application fee as well. So that's £28.50 up to 5 courses. So there's an application fee that goes along with the application. After students have applied, the students can then follow their application's progress through Track. they're tracking it through the hub, sorry, so through UCAS Hub. When they're applying, the UCAS Hub is really the one-stop shop for students to track the whole journey in terms of the research, but also in terms of their application process. So if your student hasn't signed up to the hub yet, which I assume they probably have, that's where they'll find all the information about going to university. So some handy links, some really good tools and widgets to help them with their research. They can shortlist courses in universities. There's also a widget that lets you see related events coming up, so open days or specific events around subjects, and then that's also where the students will submit their application and track the progress along the way. Students, as I said, might get an interview or an audition invitation, so they'll see that from the universities. And then there's kind of three outcomes. There's a conditional offer where a university will say, yes, that's great, we'd love for you to come study here at the university on the condition that you get these grades or these requirements. So yeah, we'd love you to come study our course as long as you get ABB in your results. There's also unconditional offer too, where, for example, if basically their student has got a space no matter what. Okay, so that university will have that student no matter what they do going forward. Now you can see where that might get a little bit dangerous. So please do encourage your students when you're supporting them in their applications and they're working going forward in their qualifications. If they do get any unconditional offers, that's brilliant. That's great. Well done. You've got a spot at university if you'd like it. But please don't take your foot off the gas with that work, because these qualifications, your A-levels, for example, will be on your CV and they'll be with you for the rest of your life. So employers may look at them. So work just as hard as it will be if it was a conditional offer, even if you get an unconditional. The other outcome may be an unsuccessful. So, for example, we can't make you a space on this particular course. But universities will usually do what's called a changed course offer, where they'll say, we can't offer you, for example, history, but we can offer you economic history or something similar if the students would like to take it. And then students, it's up to the students then to decide whether what of those responses they get, either the firm choice, which is the first choice, and their insurance choice, which is their second choice or backup. Okay. Now, where it kind of segues into the talk tonight about personal statements is this aspect just here. So when universities get their applications, what are the admissions tutors in those departments actually looking at and looking for? So they're looking, for example, whether the students have understood that the course they're applying for and maybe the career path they're going into. So, for example, if your student is really interested in going into nursing, for example, they want to do nursing, they're really excited to go to hospitals, they really want to use the equipment. I've seen all the high fidelity mannequins and things you can use. That's really, really cool. I'm just not a huge fan of people. I'm not a huge fan of human beings. Okay, you can see where there's a bit of a misunderstanding there between what you want to study, the skills you can need, and the essentials. So the university is going to look for essentially whether you understand and suit the course, but also whether students have also considered maybe a career going forward. For example, another example as well, to bring history back, I was really interested. I want to study medieval history, but loads of universities out there do history. They'll see a course on the list that says history, but I wanted to do medieval. Now, if I applied for a university just because it said history, and then talked to my personal statements about, I'm really interested in medieval history, Wars of the Roses, 15th century, that's what I'm really interested in. But then those universities I'm applying to only offer modern history. It clearly shows I've not understood the courses I'm applying for. So always drill down to that module level content. Encourage your students to have a look at the modules and the content within particular courses. Also, do they have any relevant skills and experience for that particular course? So what tools do they have in their tool bag which will help them build their degree and build their experience at university? Are you going to do lots of public speaking? Do you need good communication skills? Are you going to do a lot of reading and memorizing? So do you need good memory skills, good reading skills, good research skills? Are you going to have some kind of numerical skills involved? So see if you've got those. And if the students don't have those, that's fine. They have this time to develop that as well. And you can mention that you're developing those skills along the way. But also, how were they developed? What examples were there? Students should really give those key examples and real life examples of where they developed those. They'll also look at, obviously, the student's academic profile, so the qualifications they've received so far, any extras as well, like EPQs, music qualifications, those kind of things, all in the profile will be included. Universities will also look at contextual information. So they might make contextual offers based on low participation neighbourhoods or care experience, for example. So contextual information will also be included. And they'll also then consider their personal statement. So universities will look at the students' personal statements and everything that goes into it, which I'm going to touch upon just next on the next slide. And also an academic reference from the school or college. Okay, so when it's the whole application, that's what they're all looking for. Okay, now just before I move on to the next slide, I'm just going to check the chat. I think we're okay so far. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, fantastic. So I'll just navigate back to my talk. And here we go. So it appears that this is the last year that this kind of structure of personal statement will be around in terms of kind of a free text box. So UCAS are more than likely moving on to kind of preset questions and sectionalized questions in the next round. So for students coming in this year, it's usually going to follow the format which I'll explain just now. So the basics of a personal statement, essentially, it's the student's opportunity to speak to their universities of choice in their own words and in their own voice. Universities will get loads of different data points and numbers and grades, and there'll be so many similar collections of grades and collections of qualifications. How do we actually make those students stand out from the crowd? That's the key thing. How do you actually stand out amongst all those applications? This is where the personal statement comes in. That's why it's called it. It's a personal statement. It's the student's opportunity to make a statement in their own words about why they're suited for that course and why they would make an excellent student at that particular course. They don't get much room though, so it runs out really quick. So they get about 4,000 characters or 47 lines. So it's about just below a page of A4. So not a lot of room at all in terms of arguing everything. So to get all the information over. So it's really important for students to be concise, to be key, to be short, and to essentially answer that question that the universities are asking. This is a formal application though, but it is their students' own voice. So when your students are writing, they don't need to be super duper formal. They don't need to get the thesaurus out and go mad with it. It is a formal application, so it's a formal process, but it's about understanding those students in their own words and their own voice. So encourage your students to just speak plainly. You know, if you help them read through it and maybe help them construct it, just encourage them to talk plainly how they would to someone sat over the table from them interviewing them. Imagine the UCAS system, this personal statement, as being someone sat on the other side of a table interviewing that student about why they deserve that spot at that university. Treat it like that. They're going to look at whether the students have understood their choice of degree and career, or possibly career, if they mention it, as I mentioned earlier. And importantly, there's one personal statement for all 5 of your courses. Now, if the courses differ a lot, that's totally fine. There's some really good guidance on the UCAS website about writing a personal statement for differing courses. And sometimes some universities will allow you to submit a separate personal statement. Sometimes that's something to check with the unis, but it's usually for all 5 courses. And I really can't really push home enough how important a personal statement is, really. So this might be the only opportunity for students to speak to those admissions tutors. There might be the only personal contact they may get from that student in the whole application journey. Especially if students aren't interviewed. If students don't get interviewed, their decision is based entirely on their UCAS application. So everything they went into earlier. Okay, so the whole profile. So if the students don't get an interview, which most don't need an interview, their decision is based entirely on this. If students are interviewed, the students might get asked questions based on what's inside the personal statement. Sometimes universities might say that the personal statement isn't used an offer-making tool, but it can influence interview questions. So that's another thing to check with students. Sorry, not with the students, with the universities. Now, this is something they're also going to ask to the students. Why are you applying for that particular subject? Not that particular university, but that particular subject. What's inspired the student to go into that field? Okay, so in terms of what to include, why you want to go into that area of interest. Okay, and if you have a job in mind, that's brilliant. Okay, that's really, really cool. If students have an idea what career they want to mention, that's amazing. But essentially, why do you want to go into that particular subject area? I wanted to do history. I wanted to go to university to do history.
Jamie, you appear to have frozen. I don't know if we've lost you temporarily. I can no longer hear you, Jamie, at the moment.
Hi, everyone. Apologies if you lost me there. Yeah, can't hear me. Yeah, sorry, everyone.
You're
For
back.
some reason,
You're back.
I'm back.
Hi.
Yes, for some reason, my team's closed down. Who knows why?
Oh, don't worry. That has happened to me in the past as well. We can hear you now. Your image is still frozen though, but I'm not sure. But we can. Oh, can we hear you there?
Yeah, can you still hear me?
I can, but now I can't see your presentation, unfortunately.
Okay, no problem at
I
all.
can see a frozen image of yourself in front of the University of Liverpool, which is a lovely looking building, nice red brick.
That's a bit terrifying. Yeah.
Well,
I'll
I'll just speak for a few minutes, while
okay.
just to sort of cover you, redoing, and then when you've got your PowerPoint back, I'll stop. But then I was
Sure.
just obviously posting the deadlines in the chat, and I know sometimes parents think, oh my gosh, that's such a long time before, why do you need 2 months? But it's just the volume of forms that we're processing, and the earlier the better as well, because there are some universities that start to fill up their courses from the very beginning of the applications being open in September, so therefore the earlier students can apply, it does actually benefit them to apply as early as possible as well. How are you getting on, Jamie? I've still got a frozen image and no screen at the moment.
Okay. I'm just checking from my end. From my end, I'm still moving and I'm sharing my screen, so I'm not sure what's happened. Let me leave the call and I'll rejoin.
That's absolutely fine. I'll continue discussing the Isha College UCAS process for a few minutes, because
No
I'm
problem.
happy to talk about that.
Thanks, everyone.
Sorry about this, everybody. I suppose these things do happen. But just to add as well, that we in Isha College, we do provide a lot of information on personal statements um to students. So the first input that we give them on personal statements is on after Isha Day, which is the 20th of June, and then on in the PDP, in the tutorial time in September, we also have 2 sessions on personal statements, and also personal statements one-to-one with the tutor. And my colleague Sally, who's the higher education coordinator, she organises personal statement workshops in the autumn term as well. So there's a lot of support available. Jamie, you're back. You're moving again.
Brilliant.
And if you just screen share, I think that will probably now work.
Excellent.
Lovely. There we go. Right. Well, I will pass back over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody. Apologies about that. Turning it on and off again always works. So it's worked again here. So apologies, everyone, but I will keep going to stick to time. So excellent. Yeah, so what to include in personal statement. So why you want us to do that subject. Yes, for example, I was going to give the example of myself. I really want to do history because I've always really enjoyed visiting historic sites with my parents. I really liked, especially when there was like these shows and these public speaking events. I really enjoyed that. So I really enjoyed that particular area of history. I've always been interested in it, so essentially that's why I wanted to go to university, because it's a subject I really enjoyed, and I knew there was careers that came out of it as well. Students should also explain what they've done so far within the how they've done to explore that subject so far. So have they been into any guest lectures? Have they done some extra reading? Have they spoken to staff at universities to kind of figure out what it means to be in that particular subject area? Also speaking to current students too. So what have they done to explore that particular subject so far, both within college and also outside of school and college too? The most current info the students will find will be on university websites and publications as well. So prospectuses, handouts, websites, on UCAS, there'll be loads of really key information that students can find to kind of bulk up what that subject, what it means to study that particular subject at university level. So the most current info, if you need any info to kind of help your application, will be from university websites and online publications. But also, If students are visiting open days or actually going interacting with people at universities in person, that's a really good opportunity to ask those questions as well directly. You could end up actually speaking to admissions tutors at the university who'll be going through the application. So students should maybe go to open days and go to these interactions with some kind of preset questions they might have about what it means to be in that particular subject. Also, are those admission tutors looking for any particular skills that they haven't seen in their students so far? You know, what skills do you wish your students had that they don't have right now? And students can then develop those skills and really look really valuable in their personal statement. So ask those university staff and ask students as well. So the students who've been through that application process, you know, what did you do to help your personal statements? And how have you found studying at university, studying this subject? Now, there's no real set format, to be honest. There's no kind of format that is absolutely essential, but there is a kind of recommended structure that UCAS have, and you just need to make sure, students need to make sure that it's got some kind of structure and it reads well. The recommended structure is usually containing contents about 70% academic related, so 70% related to their academic studies, their academic interests, why they want to go and study that particular subject at university, and about 30% about their personal side as well, and extracurricular stuff they've done. So as it's sports, volunteering, activities, in the nicest way, what makes them human, what makes them not just a collection of grades and application data. You know, what are you going to do at university? If you got a sport you want to play right now and carry on, have students seen a sport at university they've not been able to see before that they want to do at university? This is really cool because this shows to the universities that that student wants to get involved in university life. So that's really key. So UCAS will usually recommend about 70% academic, 30% personal and extracurricular content. But the opening paragraph really answers why you want to do this course. That's the punchy opening paragraph. The largest kind of section in the middle will be about that relevant experience, skills, the tools that they need to build their degree, and the knowledge that they have right now. If they don't know what skills are needed in that subject, approach universities, approach people in that study field, approach people who are in that career field as well. And that's absolutely fine to contact universities even before you get there. So see what skills and knowledge that the students will need before they get there. So that's something that you can really help them with if you have any kind of contacts within your work, or if you work within education, within higher education, you can use your contacts too. So any kind of relevant experience or skills that those students will need. And then the students' final section will be focusing again around that personal aspect, your hobbies, your sports that you might do, and your interests that you have outside. Some examples of where you can kind of build up where students can actually get these skills from, so you can help them kind of recall what they might have done across their lives whilst they've been at school and college, and what they're doing right now as well. Wider reading is always good to see, so reading around their subject. So any kind of really good upcoming debates in their field. Are there any challenges coming up in their field of study that they think they could contribute to, or they have an interest in? Is there any kind of up and coming career paths and study areas that degree can lead them towards? So essentially wider reading. So reading about that wider subject area and where they would fit into that. If they've done any extra activities or qualifications like the Duke of Edinburgh, if they've done any kind of work experience or volunteering as well, whether it's paid, unpaid, volunteering, for example, the skills from that will be brilliant. They could have just done one thing, but the skills they can draw out from that could be fantastic. If they play a sport or some kind of teamwork based thing, that's really good to notice as well, because lots of these teamwork skills will be used at university. There's a lot of collaboration, even though it's mainly independent study. There's also a lot of collaboration. If they've done any kind of traveling or things abroad, that's also good to include as well, about how it took you outside of your comfort zone. And any kind of any access programs at universities, that's also fine to mention too. So just a few short examples there about where you could draw out stuff from. What's really good for students as well, and one of the good things that came out of COVID, was that lots of provision was put online. So things like FutureLearn, Google Garage, LinkedIn Learning, all these online learning resources, I'd really encourage you to encourage your students to use, because most of these are free. You can access these for free, and students can actually take these qualifications and explore particular subject areas all online at their own convenience. Usually you only have to pay if you want a certificate, or if you want to keep the materials, but have a look on those things like FutureLearn, Google Garage, LinkedIn Learning, to expand their knowledge base around a particular subject area. What students can also do if they want to do some kind of volunteering or experience in their local area, there's a really, really good website that I would really encourage you to show to your students. It's called the doit.life. Now, what doit.life does is it actually shows all the activities and volunteering opportunities according to your local area. So I've put, as you can see there on the screen, I've put Esher College's postcode in. So within the area of Esher College, this is the kind of nearby opportunities available to students that they can do volunteering, they can develop the skills. When they sign up to a profile, I think they can put in what skills they would like to develop. So this is a really good website if they want to do some more skills development, volunteering, get involved in activities. So doit.life, that's a really, really good website. I'd encourage you to show to your students. Okay, and it's really answering that question. What skills have you got? What tools do you have in your tool bag? How have you got those tools and how have you developed your experience? But important in that last section, how is it relevant to your subject of choice? Students could have done a million things. That's brilliant. That's totally fine. Excellent work. But is it relevant to that particular subject of interest? Okay, with what that subject at university doesn't need those skills. Okay, there's lots of really good examples of personal statements on UCAS, on different kind of websites. But a really important example I'll show you just here is a personal statement that someone submitted for criminology. So if you have a kind of brief read over that, it looks really good, doesn't it? It's worded quite well. They've shown where they got their interest in criminology from. But as you can see, most of that section, as you can see, so nearly 400 characters out of the 4,000 that they have, they're explaining what criminology is to a criminology lecturer. So it's important that that students don't kind of just describe what the particular subject area is. I know they're trying to actually demonstrate they know what they're on about and what their subject is, but they're actually doing that to people who have dedicated their lives to teaching this particular subject. So that's a big top tip. Don't just explain your subject of interest. Another one here that someone submitted, again, having a look through for history and international relations, so some really good quotes there, really structured quite well, bringing in personal experience, that's great. So this would get someone into a university course, which it did. Okay, so what this person has done is go on studential.com, so a really good website and for some guidance on personal statements. But they've essentially gone, right, that got a 5-star rating. That was a successful personal statement. I'll have that. I'll take that and I'll put that in the application. All right. So what's happened there is that it's actually gone through UCAS, and UCAS's system has a system called Copycat, where essentially it will flag up similarities between different personal statements. It has all personal statements ever submitted, and also all the ones online. It has access to the whole internet, so templates, previous personal statements. So if a student copies or borrows one of their friends' personal statements, or uses the one we just saw just then and copies it over, it will get flagged up on Copycat. And then the universities and the schools and the students will be made aware of this. So it just looks like the students have taken the easy way out. So it's fine to help your students with templates and to kind of help them structure it that kind of way. There's even a template on the UCAS Hub. We just encourage them not to copy and paste because it'll get flagged up. And if it's totally copied and pasted, it's more than likely that that university will just discard that application overall, because it shows the students just isn't interested in actually doing the work. Okay, so I'm just going to finish now on some top tips for students to do and how you can support them as parents and supporters. So first of all, encourage them to take as much advice as possible from talks like this, from UCAS, from the careers advisors at college and school, from universities directly. So gather as much advice as you possibly can. There's loads out there. Okay, so make sure to gather as much information and advice as you possibly can that will help you. Also encourage the students to use jargon-free sentences. As I said at the start, just speak in plain English. Just talk how you would to someone. Okay, so keep it quite formal, well written, but not conversational, but not completely full of like fancy words and things that make you stand out, because there's lots of these that application tutors have to read through. So making it easy to read and a good structure will be perfect. Students should really give plenty of evidence of where they got those skills. Yes, you can say you've got this skill and you can say you've got this experience, but where have you developed that from? Where have you got that? And how is it relevant to the area you want to go into? Okay, so that's why it's really key to speak to university directly and ask them what skills you need and what skills students need for that particular subject area. Now, this is something a lot of students forget to do. and it's something we really encourage students to do, is mention future plans. It doesn't have to be a particular career their students are interested in. That's fine if they've got that, but where they think this university journey will take them. I really want to develop my research skills. I really want to become a really good public speaker. Where they reckon this university journey will take them, that's a really good thing to mention. Mention some kind of future plans, because it shows that the student isn't just applying to get into university as the end goal and just sit there and do nothing now they're in. So future plans is a good thing to mention. Always use word processing software. Okay, it used to be the case where if you'd write it into UCAS, into the UCAS box, and you were writing it and you wanted to go to a new line, you click enter, it would submit your personal statement. Okay, that's not the case anymore, thankfully, but word processing software really helps students with spell checking. You can print it out and read it out as well. That's a really good top tip to do. So when you're writing your personal statement, use word processing software. And students should always revise it, spell check, and edit it a few times. UCAS recommend, up to 3, 4, 5 brand new copies. A couple of new copies is fine. It could really help the students get things out that they might have forgotten about, or when they write another one, it could sound a bit better. So yeah, revise, spell check, and edit a few times. And then finally, things students absolutely should not do, and they encourage them not to do. Rule numero uno, okay, the absolute number one rule: do not mention a specific university as your favorite. Okay, so you get a choice of 5, remember, 5 courses. So if you were to apply to Lancaster, Manchester, Liverpool, Sheffield, Birmingham, and then in your application the students go, oh, I can't wait to study at Manchester, I love the facilities, your course is really cool. Can you imagine what it feels like for Sheffield and Birmingham and Liverpool and Lancaster, who are reading that going, oh, this student really wants to go to Manchester, guess they don't want to come here? Reject. Okay, so it's fine to mention if students have been on a particular access program, or if they've visited a university to develop their interests. That's totally fine. Just encourage your students not to say, I'm really excited to study at this particular area, this particular university. Don't use the thesaurus, don't overuse the thesaurus and provide dictionary definitions of what that subject is. That's not what the question is. It's about why you want to go into that particular subject and what you understand about that particular area. Encourage students not to submit a whole massive block of text. Okay, follow some kind of structure. Would be really easy for the admissions tutor to read through, and it shows they've understood the question. And really, when you check in, if you do check through the personal statements, and when students are writing it, please encourage them not to exaggerate. Don't lie. We trust students not to lie, but exaggerate, don't lie, and don't copy other ones. As we saw earlier, they will get caught out. And don't include everything they've ever done in their life. Okay, they could have had a really exciting life, but please don't include everything. Keep it relevant. And finally, please encourage students not to use any inappropriate language, and don't crack jokes and don't make humor in it. Your student could be the most hilarious person in the world. That's fantastic. Let's leave that for if they get into university or whatever they want to do next. Okay, so it's a formal application, it is in their own voice, but please don't use any inappropriate language, swearing, or humor. Okay, just keep it formal and keep it concise to the question. Okay, so some key some key top tips there about what students can be doing now. So go on to the personal statement guidance on UCAS. There's a personal statement builder on their UCAS hub, so they can have a look at that as well, about some recommended structures. They can use that to shortlist their universities and the particular entry requirements as well, including anything that they don't need other than their grades, such as portfolios or auditions, for example. But always encourage your students to look at that modular level content, look into a particular degree and see what modules and topics are covered within that particular degree. That'll help them demonstrate that they understand the course they're applying for. And do talk to as many staff and students as possible to get advice about university life and also what it means to be in that subject. Okay. So a little bit of a delay there while my presentation crashed. I do apologise, but I hope that was useful, everyone. I'm just going to close my presentation and I'm going to head over to the chat as well. And if any of your students or yourselves are interested in the Open Days Liverpool, there's a little QR code there for you to follow. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Jamie. That was really informative. And we especially, Kat, my colleague, and I, who's on the call, we thought that the Do It website is a very good recommendation. So thank you for that and the information. There are a few questions in the chat. Would you prefer me to read them, or would you like to read them and just respond to them yourself?
Sure, yeah. I've just got the chat up now, so I'll just have a look. Okay. So I've had a question. So you mentioned one personal statement for all 5 UCAS choices. are any top tips on how to craft a personal statement to be relevant to slightly different courses? Yes. So when it comes to when it comes to different courses, there will be common skills and common experiences across different areas that students can develop. So if there are particular skills that will be useful across, if that tool bag will fix many walls and fix many doors, then that's something really, really key to mention. So it's all about that skills development. It might be less about focusing on that particular subject area of their interest, because they know they're going across a lot of different areas of interest. So it's the more opportunity to focus a bit more on the skills development. So that's why it's really important for students to speak to those university staff within their different subject areas to figure out what skills are needed, and then they can start matching up which ones are common to that area. But there's a really good website about that, which I will post in the chat as well. Okay, so thank you very much for your question. Can or should students use ChatGPT for a first draft, or is it too risky? Now, this is a very interesting one. Now, it's a bit, I don't have an official answer for it, and I know it's been recorded, but don't quote me on this. But I think it's fine initially to use as an initial stage of template. Okay, it's okay to help them kind of structure it. I wouldn't recommend writing it in ChatGPT and then submitting it within UCAS. Different universities will have different policies for this. Some might be okay with it, some might not. But if you're referring to a kind of a first draft or to kind of come up with some ideas, I think that would be okay. But this would be something to check with the universities and also with your college as well. I don't know if you have anything about that, Anna.
Sorry, I was just looking at an email, a message a question I've received on email actually.
No problem.
I was going to ask you about AI. I think it's a really difficult one. What I'd say a couple of things. I suppose I'd say similar to you. I think if students think about using it as a sort of structure in the same way they might use a template or an exemplar, then I think that's okay. Having used Microsoft Copilot quite extensively myself, it is similar to ChatGPT. It's just a different brand. The problem often is that it writes in quite a flowery way, and actually that's not what you really want for a personal statement. And it's also not and obviously it's changing all the time, and it is getting better, but fundamentally it's not personal. So I think they do have to be very cautious with their use of ChatGPT or other AI. It's not really in the spirit of things. And of course, if it is spotted, because there is, even though it isn't necessarily very effective, there is anti-AI software, and there are ways of sometimes spotting that it might be artificially generated, and that is quite a high risk thing to do rather than just write it yourself. And then I suppose the other thing is the point you made about asking at the interview. They may be asked about this, and then if it's not true, or it's not their own words, then they're going to struggle to respond. So I would say caution, but possibly okay as a kind of structure guide. Thank you, Jamie. There's a couple of questions about veterinary science, which I'm just going to respond to, and if you've got anything to add, please do. So first of all, Joe, thank you for your questions about veterinary applications. I would just really urge your student to get in contact with Seema Madden. Hopefully they already are in contact with her, but Seema is our medics, vets and dentists coordinator. I'll type her email, I'll pop her email in the chat. And she is really good at advising on all of this. She's an expert. She provides a weekly support session. In addition to that, in terms of clearing, your question about clearing in theory exists for every course, because any course which isn't full, when results day happens, that there can be places in clearing, sometimes before results day. So if a large number of people, veterinary applicants to a certain institution, haven't got their grades, it's a bit like EasyJet. They overbook a bit, but they can't overbook too much, because they have to have places for people who meet their offers. So then if a lot of people don't meet their offers one year, then it would be in clearing. So you can never say never, but of course the more competitive course, the less likely potentially it is to end up in clearing. And then there's a specific question about, can you see the one, Jamie, about the unusual approach to the
Sure.
personal statement? Is there an upside to having an unusual approach to the structure of the personal statement, or unusual experience in order to stand out, or is it better to be relatively plain vanilla and not take any risks? It's an interesting and very, very good question.
It's a very good question. It's a fantastic question, actually. Thank you very much for that. I think it would depend. I think one consideration I'm having is considering the competitiveness of the subject field you're going to go into and how many applications and personal statements that admission tutor will be reading. So I think if the student will be aiming for an unusual approach and an unusual kind of structure to it, it might help them stand out, but it also might confuse the admissions tutor who's been used to following kind of a structure or a similar structure along the way. And I don't know if it would slow them down, for example. It's hard to say. Yes, it's good to kind of deviate maybe sometimes from the norm to make yourself stand out. If you've got a particular structure that works for you, brilliant, follow that. But it's about balancing that. So if you go in a particular area that's not particularly competitive, or a university that's not particularly competitive as far as you're aware, it could be useful to kind of stand out. This is always something to ask those universities directly. It can seem tiresome to do this, but it's there. That'll be from the information from the horse's mouth to check with those universities directly. If your student knows the universities they're interested in, contact the admissions teams. They are there even for students who are considering university. They're not just there for students who are currently there or in the application process. So I'd say have a look at how competitive that particular course area is. It's good to stand out, but check with those particular universities directly.
Thank you. I'm just having a little bit of dialogue about various sort of virtual learning places and virtual work experience places. We would also recommend Springpod as well, which is quite a good one. And we buy into Unifrog, which I'm sure Jamie's heard of, but he wouldn't mention it because you have to buy into it. We have bought into it, and it's really good, and it has a lot of resources on there in terms of structuring the personal statement. The question about the recording will be placed on the college website, on the college calendar in the parent and carer area. I will send the link out as well. Should you really try to use up the full 4,000 word count? I mean, I think the answer is probably yes. Would you say? It's not really that long, to be honest, when you start getting into it. It's not 4,000 words anyway. Sorry, it's 4,000 characters. So actually that is only about a page and a teeny bit. So it's not very much.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, but by the time students are finished, they usually will use it up fully.
Yeah, and
it's a very short piece.
Absolutely,
Surprisingly short.
They struggle to get it down to that normally, don't they? Okay, thank you so much. Unless we have any final questions, I think we might be reaching the end of this talk. But that's been very helpful and informative. Is it okay for students to see each other's personal statements? Yes, I mean, I think that's inevitable. And what kind of levels of competition are we talking about? E.g. law or psychology at Liverpool? Is it a 1 in 50 chance or a 1 in 10? I mean, I don't know the figures. I don't know if you've got those figures at the top of your head, Jamie.
I don't, I'm afraid, no. But you picked out two of the most competitive in the UK, absolutely across the sector. Things like business, the allied health professions, for example, they'll be quite competitive. But also, it might be competitive for different reasons. It might be competitive because not a lot of universities offer that particular course. Therefore, the places, even though numerically are smaller in the UK, that means there's less chance for students to get onto that particular course. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. But I just don't have the figures, really, sorry.
No, I mean, in general, I think law and psychology, particularly psychology, are extremely competitive at the moment, and so is computer science as well. All of this data is available, but it obviously is available on the individual university websites because they are all different. Can you submit images, film clips, etc. with a personal statement for a creative course? Good question. I don't think you can.
I couldn't say because we don't really offer any creative ones. Our creative ones are architecture, where you can send we ask for either a portfolio or an interview.
So I mean, generally, if it's a creative course, if it might be at a conservatoire, then you would be applying through a different process. If it was a music course or a theatre course or something along those lines. If it's an art course, you probably will be asked. Excuse my computer. You probably will be asked to submit some form of portfolio. Film studies, probably not, to be honest. There'll be, if a film studies course wouldn't generally have a portfolio or anything else, it would generally be, they'd be looking at the grades that you would be achieving in related subjects, and also what you wrote about in your personal statement. You wouldn't generally be asked, but each individual course does vary, and all the information for the kind of requirements of courses is available on UCAS and on the university websites, and also in Unifrog. The thing about university applications is that they are really, each individual university operates as a separate entity, so there is no answer to all of these questions that apply to all British universities. It is a case of, you know, just doing the research. Okay. My student friends are getting nervous about the press of universities going bust and doesn't want to apply to the form of politics as they believe to be more at risk. Is that a legitimate application strategy, given that those are also the universities more likely to provide an insurance offer? I'm probably going to take this one. I mean, I haven't necessarily, I haven't heard anything about this. Obviously, there are funding issues. But some, you know, what we now call recruiting universities or former polytechnics, they might have a certain specialism in certain subjects and be very, very good at those. So that might mean that they're actually more financially viable than other subjects, that other universities that are older. I think it's probably best not to second guess and worry about things you can't control. If a university is advertising on UCAS now, it's probably fairly unlikely to go bust in the next 3 years. I think my guidance to students would be to look into very carefully where you want to study, what kind of university, what course, and apply. And obviously you need to consider your grades as well, and then apply for 2 aspirational, or 1 or 2 aspirational, 2 sort of on your level, and then 1 safe. And I would probably avoid kind of worrying too much about speculation, although I know that students can worry about these things. Okay, I think we might call it a day there, Jamie. Thank you very much for all of your excellent sort of information, which was really helpful, and thank you very much everyone for coming. Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks for having me. Lovely rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.
Bye.